I'm a handicapped person, and every day I come in here, these places are filled up with cars that don't belong there. They don't have any cards, they don't have any plates with wheelchairs on them. They don't belong there. They're breaking the law every day.
You can get a $25 fine for a first offense and a $50 fine for a subsequent offense if you're not authorized to park there.
In case you've forgotten, those handicapped parking spots in New York State are strictly for the disabled. And Patricia Ducci, the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles, is seeing to it that the law is being enforced. Specifically, how does this law read?
Well, what it provides is that any shopping center with 5 stores and 20 parking places must set aside a certain number of spaces for handicapped individuals. They have to set aside either 5% of their parking spaces or 10 spaces, whichever is less.
What if they do not comply?
If they do not comply, there's a $250 fine.
Can other businesses not mandated by law post their property for disabled parking?
They can if they want to, and you would the privileges would be the same and the enforcement would be the same.
What about the motorist who parks illegally at a handicapped spot? What kind of punishment is given?
The law was toughened recently, as a matter of fact. There is now a $25 fine for a first offense if, in fact, you park in a spot when you don't have a permit. And there's a $50 fine for subsequent offenses. So the penalties are more severe than they used to be. They used to be 10 and 15, now they're 25 and 50.
And you've had a problem parking and getting into the various
Every day
stores?
I come in here. Every day I come in here. Because I come in here and I sit and watch people. I'm a people watcher, and I watch the people in the mall. And when I come in here, these are taken. And so when I walk back, after I park my car way down in Timbuktu, and I can walk back down here, I check the cars. And they haven't got any wheelchair on them or anything, and I go in and report it to the desk and to security. And they say, oh, the guy will be right out. Right out. I stood out here for 15 minutes the other day, and nobody ever showed.
Have you had any problem with enforcement?
Well, I think there are some, and some handicap groups get in touch with us and say that there's a problem. But I haven't heard a lot of complaints recently. I think there's more and more awareness now about the needs of handicapped people, and I would hope that people would not abuse the privileges.
We had the commissioner with us this morning, and just this very plight that you're talking about. You feel that this is being enforced here at the Boulevard Mall?
At none of the malls. At none of the malls, Kmart or any of the other stores, they tell me when I go to the service desk to report this, they tell me that they have to have 6 complaints before the police will come.
I noticed that you're in a handicap parking spot. You have a handicap license plate.
Yes.
Who is the handicapped person?
My husband.
Now, have you had any problems in your travelings with your husband as far as parking your vehicle close to a store?
Well, it just depends if there's a sale on and they're busy, then it's hard to really find a place.
Have you been pretty fortunate most of the time to find it?
Most of the time, yes, yes.
And what about those times when you don't have a spot?
Come as close as we can to the entrance.
And then you do the best you can getting there, huh?
Right.
Tell the people look at us when we park.
What was that?
He said that people, once we're parking, people stop and look to see if it's us. They look for a sign, you know.
Who is eligible for such a permit, and where can it be obtained?
Well, there are two programs, really. There's the license plate program, which is operated by my department, by the Department of Motor Vehicles, and those plates can be obtained from a motor vehicle office. There's also a permit program, which is administered by local municipalities, cities, towns, and villages, who issue permits. Now, the effect for the person who has the permit or the plate is the same, okay? But if you are going to apply for a permit, for a plate, for a handicap plate, the registration for the vehicle must be in the name of the handicapped person, okay? And it's for permanent disabilities, and you must have a letter from your physician that says that you're permanently disabled and why. Now, in case of the permits, you also must have a letter from your physician, but they do issue temporary permits. For instance, if you break your leg and you're on crutches for 6 weeks, you can go to your local municipality, get a permit, and there is a time limit that on it. It'll say it expires on such and such a date, and you have the use of it until then.
In other words, a disabled person that doesn't want to advertise it on his or her license plate can get a permanent permit.
Right.
And just slip it on.
And the effect of it is the same. You have the same privileges that you do if you have a plate.
And there are certain rules that the person with a disabled permit must follow.
The only real rule is, in order for you to be parked in a spot for the handicapped legally, the person must be in the car, either as a passenger or a driver. In other words, if it's in the family and the disabled person is not with you, you do not have the privilege of parking in the spot. I think it's important to know that disabled people, first of all, some of them you can't tell readily there is a handicap, but also that I would hope that the average person would not abuse the spots, because people who need them really need them, and it's important that they be reserved for them.